Hey yo, what up guys? It's Kuroki, and this is just gonna be a really quick video because was watching Hitman cutscenes and like fell halfway asleep, woke up, checked my comments, and King Nero had left a comment on the old lunge exploit video, and that actually reminded me to go through and actually update this because I never updated the findings that I ended up, what's the name of it, that I ended up having. I never actually made that public. So just as an update. So beforehand, I thought I had disproven it in terms of it not being dodge, in terms of it not being blues, blah, blah, blah. And I had, I guess you could say, acceptable evidence, but not conclusive, but not definitive. I guess you could say definitive, conclusive evidence. But then I actually ended up getting it later because, how can I put this? After I had made that video series talking about that, Obsidian went through on Discord and messaged me. And as a side note, what's the name of it? He has deleted all of his messages, trying to hide several things that I have already screenshotted / downloaded onto my computer. So some of that will be inside of, what's the name of it? Some of that will be inside of this video. Some of it will just be if I need it for later on. But basically, he came back and tried to say that they were saying that it was a distancing thing in terms of countering one of the mortars, but then distancing themselves away from the mortar. What's the name of it? From the first mortar or the second mortar, whichever it ends up being. It should technically be the first mortar. That there's a distancing thing, and that didn't work for me in regards to some of the lunges that Happy and Stratos were doing because they were bunny hopping. They were barely smudging, and I was like, the distance that they're moving is literally like a small step. There's no way that his mortar is, what's the name of it? There's no way that his mortar is actually that small. I was just like, that's literally like 1 or 2 steps in front of you. I was like, there's no way an AoE attack is that fucking thin. So at first I was thinking, you know what, or whatever, maybe lunging at this time is like, I don't know, shrinking the AoE, the AoE aspect of it to where it's only a linear point. And then I was wondering, well, how much can you do? And like, how far can you move in order to actually do the mortar and still not do anything? And so I went inside the instance and I kept trying to do it. And what's the name of it? I kept trying to like clip as fast as I could on a controller at least. And lucky for me, I ended up finding, well, not finding, but I ended up mistakenly doing some type of foot glitch with super speed. Whenever I tried lunging while toggling my movement speed, it caused my feet to do like a little cartoon speed run. And so whenever I lunged and clipped it, I ended up basically staying almost exactly still. And I was like, okay, I barely fucking moved. And I even like walked back ever so slightly to go back to the exact spot that I was in. And so that's whenever me and Crappy had gotten to talking, and he was wondering if you even had to move at all or if you got somebody else do it. So I went in with Zen, and we actually went through and tested it and confirmed it. Like, I think it was the next day, it was like 1 or 2 days later, went back and actually confirmed Crappy's hypothesis that you didn't actually have to move. So what definitively actually puts it as an exploit is the fact that you don't actually have to move and you don't have to be the person doing the lunge in order to get the desired effect. So what that means is if you stand still or whatever and have aggro from the ultimate soldier and you stand completely still, somebody else, healer, DPS, other tank, whoever or whatever, if they do the lunge at that timing, you will see 2 sets of mortar animations come over your body and neither of them will do damage. You are not the person even doing the lunge, which means that there's no blue, there is no blue immunity. All that blues don't go to other people inside of your group. They only go to the person who actually gets the counter. So blue immunities are immediately thrown out or whatever. Dodge mechanic completely thrown out because I'm not moving, I'm not doing anything. And relocation immediately thrown out because I'm not moving or doing anything. And so the hour-long video that I had made, I think it was like round 9, like lunge practice. I think it was like an hour of me going through and doing the practice lunge. Whenever I went back to watch that footage, I noticed that even whenever I did perfect pre-times, what's the name of it? I did that and I also did it with Zen again. But whenever I went through and I did perfect pre-times for the lunge on Ultimate Soldier, that the set of animations for the first mortar still go off. There's no second set of mortar animations. It's only the first set or whatever that end up going off, but they don't do damage because the attack doesn't, like as you can see, the attack doesn't exist. It's almost like something like pre-lunging Minotaur. The attack has no damage behind it, but for some reason the animations are actually still playing. And so whenever I was going through and I was studying the timing of the pre-lunge, not of the pre-lunge, of the delayed lunge, that timing is basically a pre-lunge on the second mortar animation, which is the reason why you see 4 sets of what's the name of it? 4 sets of animations. You see the shells dropping, then the AoE splash, the shells dropping, and then the AoE splash again. And the thing is, the second set can obviously be explained or whatever. That's a pre-lunge. That can explain why that set of mortar damage doesn't register, why it doesn't do anything. But the first set of mortars is actually unexplained because you have a set of mortars that you are second and a half late on lunging, which means that you can't be canceling the attack or whatever. You can't lunge that late on any attack in the game and not have damage still register. That's just that's just the principle. That's just the principle inside of the game. You're not canceling the first mortar attack. You're not getting a blue from it. You're not even moving in order to get out of it. Whatever. There is no in-game mechanic that explains that phenomenon at all. That is actually factually a bug at that point. Because that makes 0 sense. There is no movement, there's no nothing. And then this is a Discord message from Obsidian saying that Happy and Stratos were the ones that found the timing and the distancing for it, which is now proven factually incorrect because the timing of it they could have found, but there is actually 0 distancing that has to be done with this lunge in order to avoid the mortar. And this was a screenshot from Twitch of New, I believe, saying something along the lines of they didn't copy strategies or that they didn't need help or some shit like that. And this is just flicking back to the screenshot from Chill saying that New and Brittany actually copied that from Happy and Stratos. And then this is a quick video clip of Brittany going through and actually doing the delayed lunge inside of their round. That was their round 29 strategy that they never publicly uploaded whatever that Chill was going through in editing, but I'm assuming he decided not to go through and upload it because he knew that I was eventually going to end up making this video talking about how it was a bug. So with that being said, King Nero, to respond to your comment, the run that I uploaded, that was like 2 attempts. Like the very, very first like bit at the intro that you see is like, that's whenever I first found it, because I had to find the lunge timing. I wasn't paying attention to the animations or whatever. I wasn't paying attention to the animations at first. I was going through and just testing, delaying my lunge from several different methods, and so some of them were failing, some of them were succeeding, but I hadn't actually got it. Whenever I actually got it, that's whenever I went through and I edited it in order to show the streaks once I had actually figured it out. Once I had figured it out, I had a streak for a hot minute, and then Borns and the other guy died. Anybody who runs with Borns knows that Borns dies inside of low loot runs or whatever, but the other person dying didn't help. But we ended up dying, started over again, and then I got more footage, and then I was like, all right, I have enough in order to go through and actually make a clip or whatever in order to go through and do the upload. And then after that, we went ahead and wiped again, and then we left the instance because I said inside of the run that I didn't want to carry the other guy using it, like what I said inside of the video. And that was not the method that I actually used in round 29. I was not going to do something that I purposely knew was a bug or something that is not something that could not be, what's the name of it, cannot be intended at any point in time for any given reason. Alright, so this was just going to be just a quick update. I just got out of the Ultimate Soldier raid with Zen or whatever. I went through and had him tested because I spent like 10-15 minutes trying to get the delayed lunge to work, and it didn't. So I brought him in because he's done it as well, and he did not get it to work either. Loki kind of irritated that I had to pay people in order to actually get the instance to queue, since it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. But it's whatever. It's worth it. I end up proving a W for myself. But basically, the way whatever inside of the actual raid, his mortar performs like how it does inside of what's the name of it? Like how the mortar attack does inside of PvP. His mortar actually has a CC effect at the very, very beginning of it. like what the regular mortar does that is not present inside of SM, which is the first indication that whatever his mortar attack is technically bugged. But then also, if you try to do the delayed lunge, you will still end up taking damage from one mortar or whatever. You will not have complete absorption. And after going through and trying and failing at doing the lunge over several tries, we went through and actually just calculated it in terms of the blues, because if you were able to get a perfect pre-lunge on the second mortar attack, all you did was just get hit by one mortar. Roughly speaking, we calculated it to be around 20% of your health that the blue shield is, which would be around 15 to 30,000 shield. The main issue is just that not sure if I said it inside this video or if it was just inside of the rants, but I'm just going to go through and say it, is that it seems to be an unwritten rule that only one shield can reduce damage from a single damage tick. So if you have a damage tick coming in for 200k and you have two shields for 100,000 on you, you're going to get hit for 100k. You're not going to get hit for 0. Only one of those shields is actually going to apply to that single damage tick. And so the question is whether or not the blue would end up just being a weaker shield and not do anything. Like if I had Winter Ward and say it shielded for 110,000 and say I had a blue for an extra 20,000 or whatever, would the blue break the rule and shield for 130,000 total? Or would the blue just be useless and the Winter Ward would just end up reducing it by 110? But either way, technically the blue is not gonna make or break you. If you were gonna get one shot to the mortar, in most cases you were gonna get one shot anyway. Because most of the stronger shields you could live through, as long as you had a damage debuff or whatever. That was the biggest thing, because that would chunk off around 20,000 damage. But to chunk off an extra 20 instead of that, it might let you use Reflect instead of Winter Ward, maybe, assuming it stacks. But other than that, it doesn't really change anything. But yeah, the delayed lunge does not work inside of the actual instance. Feel free to go through and queue it up with your league or your friends, or just queue it up and wait until pucks queue inside of it and tank it, or go on test server or whatever, assuming test server is back up and tested. But it is factually a bug. The mortar inside of SM does not perform the way that Ultimate Soldier does inside of the raid, which means that he has been altered / bug like other bosses inside of SM, which means that going through and delaying the lunge in order to cause that bug in order to happen technically is, factually speaking, by definition an exploit, because that is a bug. That's not even, I was just like, now I don't even have to get confirmation from a developer saying whether or not it's intended or not, when the actual boss itself, the verified, the OG version of Ultimate Soldier, does not perform that way. So now I know that that is in fact unintended, that is in fact a bugged mortar attack, in which case going through and using it in order to receive a benefit is in fact technically an exploit. So moving on with the video.
And then for you to suddenly act like you care after you have conveniently already beaten 30. Now it's like, okay, now that we've already done it, now let's go back and try to do it the right way. I'm like, no, that is not the way it works. Like, that is not going to get you validation. You already, and again, it's not a cheese. You already glitched it.
And so, as an alternative to that, there's actually 3 methods that I found in order to do round 29. One of them was the eating the mortars method, which I showed in the eating mortars for fun run with Crappy that I already uploaded. The second method is the rolling method, which I did. Unfortunately, I do not actually have the save clip from whenever I finished round 29. It only covered the very beginning of round 30, so fuck me. But what's the name of it? That's what I used for round 29. But I did have footage of a previous wipe attempt, because anytime that I wiped and I died to something, whenever I was going through and perfecting the rollback method, I always saved clip in order to go through and like go back and watch it. And it's one of the reasons why whenever I don't have old footage of some shit, it's because I have thousands of, well, not thousands, but I have hundreds of freaking save clips that are like an hour long from doing this inside of SM especially. But I always save clips in order to go back and watch it to see what exactly happened. And so this one was actually a saved attempt where I think I lasted for like 14 minutes without dying or whatever, and in that particular run I died to lightning because I had lunged in order to avoid it, but the dodge duration ran out right before it emptied, so I got one-shotted through the through the bubble that I currently had on me, so that ended up being a wipe. I think the furthest I've ever gotten was like 80% health without having a death, and I died to a grenade. I was pissed off. I thought I was about to get a deathless, but I think that was inside of the, that may have been with God Freeze's group or whatever, which is the group I actually beat round 30 with. And the other method is the lunge back or whatever, the lunge back inside of man bat, which is what OP Midget did. He has actually ran 29:30 enough times to where he actually perfected it or whatever. So he actually has a deathless run of round 29. He was the one that was tanking for me through the 20s. Whenever I was first running up, I showed him the different strategies for beating round 29 in terms of dealing with the mortars. He went through, picked the lunge, perfected it, and then he invited me to the group that I ended up beating 29:30 with. And then whenever I beat 29:30 on my controller, he was also the one that ended up taking that. I recorded that deathless run around 29, and that is going to be uploaded / public with this video as well. So that's I think that's everything that I actually need to say inside of the video. I can't think of anything. Whatever, before I forget. To Cost, this is, I was just like the finding out that the motor is factually a bug. Yeah, that is why I overthink. Because that's how you find bugs. You don't just see things and then just say, oh, it's explained away by this. You actually need to test things in order to know. So yeah, that is factually a bug. But what's the name of it? That's why I overthink. Happy, not obsessed with proving you guys wrong. As a clarification, let me just specify that I am obsessed with proving anyone wrong in general, just because that's the type of person that I am, where I hate people that, like, well, actually, I don't want to say I hate. I am triggered by people who do not pursue understanding or knowledge of things. There are, I guess you could say a more common example of the type of person that would trigger me is a person who just asks for a DPS loadout but doesn't want to understand why it works or how to switch out different moves for different situations. They don't know how to adapt their loadout. They just have one cookie cutter loadout, and then as soon as a patch comes up and changes one or two things, they're just completely lost, and then they're waiting on the next YouTube video because they never understood the power set or the rotation to begin with. That triggers me or whatever, and it especially irritates me whenever people claim to be good at the game and understand things, but they don't have this mentality or whatever. That's one of the issues that myself, along with several other people that I've talked to, have issues with fucking New and Brittany, is because they want to brag about it as some headlines and a whole bunch of other things. Meanwhile, they're over here threatening and harassing league mates for extended time periods, as shown by these screenshots from Elu, and they're also spending 10 hours inside of Darkside, which is wiping repeatedly, trying to get world first. It's behaviors like this where you end up copying strategies that you don't fully understand, and whenever you, how can I put this, whenever you try to just brute force your way through an instance, through obsessive grinding, through death / RNG, that's whenever I have a problem / I get irritated. But I mean, it's been fucking years that I've known shit like this, so I get better at dealing with it. But then, like, how can I put this? I almost expected better from Elu and fucking Chill, but then at the same time, watching the footage, it makes sense from whatever, how can I put this? It makes sense / it's possible until you do extreme analysis of it. It's only whenever you extremely analyze it from a tank who's actually tried to avoid the mortar, so therefore I've seen the different distances that I can be at and I've still gotten hit, that makes me go through it and say that this can't be a positioning thing. So, like, at first I was mad at them, but then I went back and retracted that and said, actually, you know what, they probably couldn't have known this, and so I don't really have flack for them anymore. But Happy and Stratos, no. I was just like, both of you catch an L for round 29, and that's also an L for New and Brittany. That's also an L for Basic, aka / Juvenile, and anybody else who thought that that method was actually legit. I mean, obviously several of the other bosses were bugged, such as Deathstroke, such as Baron Von Savage. I mean, technically all of them had minor little kinks, but to purposely use the bug is an L. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video with that. I'm out.